Welcome, fellow nerds, to this episode of Nerd Shit, hosted by Lord Brad Brad and Riorik, where we discuss all things nerd. Whether it's anime, movies, comic books, video games, Magic the Gathering, or Dungeons & Dragons. If it's nerd, we talk about it. So pull up your favorite chair, pour a glass of mead, and get ready to come and discuss everything nerd shit. Hello everyone, welcome to the first episode of Nerd Shit. This is Lord Brad Brad and Riorik, and I just want to thank everyone for listening in, tuning in, and I just want to let everyone know who we are and what we do that qualifies us to say this is Nerd Shit. We want to talk about nerd shit. It's the father-son podcast, and I'll introduce you to the father, Riorik.
Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the show. On here, I'm known as Riorik, though I will admit that is not my legal name. I am a nerd at heart, have grown up a nerd. As Lord Brad Brad's father, he grew up in a nerd home. But just to kind of give you guys a little bit of background about me and my nerdness, I am a lifelong gamer. I started playing video games in the 80s on an Atari 2600 and have played on just about every console that's launched in the years between then and now, including during the late 90s, early 2000s. I actually worked for a video game company where I got paid to play video games. Literally 40 hours a week at a desk with a video console, playing games and getting paid. So as you can imagine, when Lord Brad Brad, also not his name on the birth certificate, when he was born into a nerd house surrounded with video games, movies, animes, and all kinds of other nerdiness that kind of left him no choice but to grow up a nerd like me. On that note, Lord Brad Brad, why don't you kind of tell everyone a little bit about your nerd upbringing?
Yeah, my first little introduction into nerd stuff was Dragon Balls on the TV. Here's a Game Boy Color with Pokemon on it. You know,
well, let's back up there. So a Game Boy Color that you still own.
Yes.
And still works.
Still works with the first game that I got with it, which was Pokemon Blue. And it still works, still functions, still in good shape. Gotta still replace the batteries all the time, not the original batteries.
No, not the original batteries, but that kind of is a testament to how much video games in particular have played a part in both of our lives, really.
Yeah.
Because that was my Game Boy Color that I had, that when you were old enough, I gave to you.
Yes. Yeah, so I grew up with that, watching him play all the video games. Couldn't really play them, because, you know, when you're a kid, you don't want your kid touching your expensive stuff. And you're a kid, so you kind of don't know what you're doing.
Well, and to be fair, my video game interests tend to gravitate towards RPGs. So a lot of reading, a lot of tactical type stuff, things young kids don't necessarily excel at or comprehend.
Yeah, I'm not going to give a 6-year-old Fire Emblem.
Or in my case, Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give a kid that stuff.
So, but you got to grow up watching me play a lot of those games, and you developed an interest in those, and you play RPGs a lot now too, don't you?
Yeah, those are my go-to.
Yeah.
Out of all the kids, I'm the RPG, the other ones are shooters.
They did come by that honestly too, because I was a big Call of Duty Halo player back in the day.
I can get down with that. I cannot get down with online games. I don't like them.
Well, let's
we'll save that for later.
Well, let's clarify. There are different types of online games. I'm a big MMO fan.
I am not.
No, you don't do anything online, but I'm a big MMO guy.
Yeah.
I am learning MOBAs and online shooters so that I can play with your brother.
That's true.
But I don't go in for those games. I still do my MMOs.
Yeah.
Which are really just RPGs with other people.
Yeah, to me, they're just, social platform type things, and this is the only social platform I'm a part of, is this.
I don't play with people I don't know.
That's
Even
true.
on my MMOs. I don't join random groups. I don't join random raids. I play by myself, or I play with people I know. If people I know aren't logging in, I'll multi-box.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't play with people I know. Our times never match up.
Yeah, I'm finding that as we get older, I have less time that coincides with my friends. Of course, they have regular day jobs that see them going to offices and working, whereas I'm a consultant, so I work from home, and my schedules are a little bit more flexible and varied than theirs. So there is that. But yeah, in addition to playing video games and watching movies, I am a huge history and science buff. I won't say nerd, because I can't quote a lot of specific dates in history, and I can't quote a lot of specific scientific formulas, but I have a lot of general understanding of scientific concepts and historical events. So I watch a lot of History Channel, Discovery Channel, Science Channel, things like that, which you guys also got subjected to, too.
Yeah, I watch a lot of that. I'm big into that stuff, too. If I went to college, it would have been to be a history teacher, but I also, don't like kids or people. So it's kind of one of those things, I'm doing what I like, but also with the people I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it.
But yeah,
So.
I watch a lot of stuff on dark science experiments that this was really screwed up. Look what they did. Here's what sort of result they got before they had to stop because the government said, no, the people got wind of this, it'd be bad. Or people did get wind of this and said, hey, you need to stop.
And there's a lot of stories about stuff like that. But I think my favorite science show was when they were talking about genetic coding and how they could make raptors out of chickens.
Yes.
So if I can turn a chicken into a velociraptor, that's awesome.
Tiny little raptors running around.
Yeah. So, but, that kind of leads to some of our early exposures to nerd things. I grew up playing video games, but video games weren't necessarily how a lot of people got introduced into that nerd lifestyle. For people like you, some of your earlier introductions were, watching me play, but getting to watch TV shows like Dragon Ball, like you talked about.
Yeah, and with watching other people play games, it's kind of like you're just watching the story unfold, so it's like a TV show or a movie. Mm-hmm. And that's the most gateway is, hey, here's a movie. Here's things like this movie. Here's a TV series. Here's a bunch of TV series and movies just like it that then go into, here's games that are just like it.
It's an interactive movie.
Yeah.
It's an interactive TV show. Yeah. So, what was your first nerd movie, anime or live action?
The first movie I can remember from you showing it to me, from just seeing it, oddly enough, the earliest I can think of is probably Fifth Element on DVD.
That was the first DVD your mother and I owned, actually.
Yeah, it makes sense.
She will not ever let me live it down. She was very angry because when we first got married, right after you and your brother were born, we didn't have a whole lot of money. I wasn't doing what I do now for a living.
That's horrible.
Yes. So I bought us a DVD player that came with 3 DVDs, and Fifth Element was one of them. And I did it right before Christmas. And your mom was so mad that I spent that money on that stuff before Christmas. She'll never let me live it down. I'll never be able to forget it. But that makes sense as to why that's one of your earliest memories, because that was one of the first DVDs we owned.
I just remember aliens, crazy chick, red hair, and the dude with the bald head and a gun in space.
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
Yeah, and then the guy who's like the club owner villain dude. I don't know. I don't remember much, but I remember there like being a club and this one big dude. I don't remember it that well.
Wow.
But I remember all the aliens.
Yeah. So, for me, the first nerd movie I really remember watching is, of course, Star Wars. Growing up, I had an older brother, obviously your uncle. So, he introduced me to horror movies as a kid. So, here I am, 7 years old, watching Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Halloween, all those horror movies from the late 70s, early 80s. And it wasn't until I was a little, I don't know, I want to say 10, something like that, that I actually watched my first Star Wars movie, and it was Star Wars Episode 6, the one with the Ewoks.
Yeah.
We were at one of my dad's co-workers' houses, and he had it on VHS, and he turned it on for me to watch while him and my dad were off drinking beer, goofing off. That was my first nerd experience. Now, my first anime came a few years after that. Obviously, I did not grow up in a nerd house.
No.
Anime, Dungeons and Dragons, things like that were not anywhere in the realm of possibility in that household, and I lived out in the country where nobody else knew about that stuff. So I was older before I got into anime. And my first anime was a double feature at my friend Mark's house. He showed me Ninja Scroll and Ghost in the Shell. What was your first anime?
My first anime TV show was Dragon Ball.
Yeah, I knew about Dragon Ball by that point too, but I didn't count that as anime. To me, that was just another cartoon because I didn't have a concept of anime.
Yeah. Well, you took us to John Mark's house that was on. Well, it was Zeke's house.
Yeah,
it was on.
Well, because John Mark and Zeke are the ones that introduced me to Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
So
that and Darren, he introduced that to us.
Yeah.
Movie. I don't know which one came first that you showed me. That was an animated movie. If it was Appleseed or Princess Mononoke, both were very anime.
You would have seen Mononoke before you seen Appleseed. I think they were released a couple of years apart from each other.
Yeah.
And I had Mononoke pretty much as soon as it came out on DVD.
Alright.
So
this is also like, it's not about like if it's adult themed or not. He had South Park on, so it didn't matter what it was. I would have seen it.
Yeah. True. What's probably your favorite nerd movie? Live action. Let's do live action first.
Oh, Spaceballs.
Spaceballs? See, now a lot of people are probably going to assume that I'm going to either go Lord of the Rings or Star Wars. But I'm not. I love Star Wars. I'm a Star Wars fan. Don't get me wrong. You look around my office, there's Star Wars stuff everywhere.
True.
But my favorite live-action nerd movie, Galaxy Quest.
What a good movie.
It was. It was sci-fi. It was outer space. It was aliens. But it was fun comedy and a good parody of Star Trek.
Well, I don't think Star Trek takes itself seriously. It tries, but it takes itself too seriously. And the fact that they're able to make fun of it and still try to make it sound like they're serious about it is super funny.
Yeah. I thought Galaxy Quest was just a fun little romp of a movie. But Spaceballs is a classic. You cannot go wrong with Spaceballs.
I'm surrounded by assholes. Yeah. Good movie.
Yeah. Mel Brooks, comedic genius.
All of his movies.
Yes. Alright, so what about anime?
Favorite animated movie? Hands down, Princess Mononoke.
It's kind of like Doctor Who. The first is always your favorite.
Pretty much.
Because I'm the same way. Ninja Scroll.
Yeah.
Ninja Scroll was my first. And it's still my favorite. But I do like Princess Mononoke. I do like Ghost in the Shell. I do like Vampire Hunter D. I like a lot of those old animes and even some of the newer ones. But Ninja Scroll will always hold a special place in my heart. I think because it was my first.
I don't know if you'll like it, but like a really popular one that people really love is called Your Name. It's a new animated movie. Dylan loves it. I watched it. I don't remember it because I immediately watched another TV show after that and kind of blended in with it and like, oh shoot, I shouldn't have done that. I didn't get to process it.
So I'll have to add that one to my list because, I mean, thanks to you and your brother Dylan, y'all have introduced me to a lot of newer animes. And I'm not as up on those as you guys are.
Yeah, and he's gotten a lot ahead of me in anime because I watched it from like a kid to like high school. He picked it up like his senior year in high school and goes, okay, I see what you were getting into. I like it now. I'm done making fun of you for it because I think I like this stuff more than you now.
Well, and he's kind of lucked into his role as stay-at-home dad here lately, too. So he's had a lot more opportunity to watch stuff than you.
That's true.
So that does really ramp up his viewing time, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. A douche. Of course, I can't say anything. I sit around and play video games all day. But
I work anywhere from 8 to 14 hours a day.
I mean, I work. It's just my work's not always straight 8 hours. Sometimes I'll work a little bit in the morning. Sometimes I'll work a little bit in the afternoon. Sometimes I work nights. Sometimes I work weekends. I have a lot more fluid schedule, whereas yours is pretty much all day, every day kind of thing with your job.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, so if those are our favorites, what are our least favorites? Let's go that route.
Movies?
Yeah, nerd movies. What's a nerd movie that you watched that you just hated or don't care to watch again?
Anything that has the word Star Trek in it. Anything.
Okay. Some of the newer Star Treks, the first Star Trek reboot that they did with Chris Pine, I really liked. I thought that was an interesting retelling of Star Trek with a new spin to it. The second one wasn't bad. The third one,
I also am one of those people that will flip a coin to watch the new DC movies because I haven't liked any of them since Christian Bale.
You know, I'll be honest. After the Christian Bale Batman movies, and DC started talking about we're going to make a DC cinematic universe kind of like Marvel, I was really skeptical of it. And none of their movies since then have really clicked for me.
Mm-mm.
I mean, the first Wonder Woman, it was a good movie for what it was, but it wasn't a good Wonder Woman movie. It wasn't a good starting point or jumping off point for the DCU. You know, it's certainly no Iron Man.
Yeah, I think she's their most successful.
She is their most successful of the standalone movies, I think, too.
Yeah.
But if I were to relate that movie to an MCU movie, I would have to say that the Wonder Woman movie is probably comparative to Thor Dark World, which is one of the weakest of the MCU standalone character movies.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it wasn't as good as Captain America. It wasn't as good as Iron Man. It wasn't even as good as the first Thor movie.
No.
So,
no, it wasn't.
And then Batman versus Superman. It's good for memes.
Really good for memes.
You know, I mean, there's nothing that beats Martha now.
Martha.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's that. Yeah, the DCU just hasn't succeeded for me.
Yeah. What about you? Any bad nerd movies you just don't like?
And this is going to be one that some people may not agree with. Not because of the movie itself, but because of how I classify it as a nerd movie. My least favorite of the nerd movies is The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, which is a Brad Pitt movie. It's about 3 hours long, but I swear if you watch it, you'll feel like you've been there for 3 weeks. I classify it as a nerd movie because they try to historically represent the final days of Jesse James. I mean, it's not over-the-top drama. It's not some Western fiction using real-life characters. It's almost a historical reenactment of what they believe those events were. Holy shit, those events must have been boring.
Yeah.
Because that movie just drags on forever.
Kind of like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer. They try to make that movie super historically accurate, and they didn't.
Don't trash Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. The movie, yes, was garbage. I will concede that point.
Yeah, but the autobiography.
No. No. The book, though, was really good. If you haven't read the book, read the book. Because the book is way better than the movie. I know people say that about books and movies all the time, but this one is in a league of its own. That's how bad the movie was compared to the book.
It's a good biography.
Not a biography.
Biography.
Not a biography.
I want to believe it.
You go right ahead. It is a good blend of fact and fiction.
Yeah, fact.
And fiction.
Well, yeah, they gotta fictionalize it a little bit for it to sell.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, just a little.
Yeah. All right.
Alright, what about good nerd TV shows? Live action animated.
Ooh. Nerd TV shows. There's actually a lot more than people realize. I mean, you and I were talking about this the other day when we were talking about the different nerd shows.
Robot Chicken, hands down.
Robot Chicken is a great nerd show.
It knows who it's targeting.
It does. It really does. But for me, man, from a TV show perspective, I'm going to have to go with the cult favorite Firefly. I mean, I watched Firefly when it was on TV. Then when it got canceled, I was mad. When it popped up on Hulu back in Hulu's early days and when you could watch pretty much everything for free, I streamed those episodes every day over and over and over again. I probably watched that entire, lone season 5 times in the span of a month because I just kept rewatching it. I loved it. And to this day, I still love it. The movie was good. I liked the movie that they did for it, Serenity. They had a game for it at one point that was supposed to be a jumping off point for a bigger game. But due to mishandling of funds, licensing problems, Firefly changing hands, it all ended up going under and it's lost to the world now. I think we'll only have Firefly in our memories. Rip Captain Mao.
Any bad nerd TV shows? This one's gonna be controversial, but I think it's good, but a lot of other nerds kind of don't like The Big Bang Theory.
See, and that's probably just because they're pretend nerds and they don't understand the jokes and the references. Because, I mean, they actually had real world physicists and scientists on the crew trying to make sure that all the formulas you see on the board are accurate. All the concepts and scientific theories that they discussed and the principles that they talked about were valid. So a lot of the dialogue, a lot of the math that you see on that TV show is legit real. And people don't understand that. And I think that's, I don't like that because they're just a bunch of getting up there talking gibberish kind of stuff. But it's real. I had to explain this to people. I had to actually explain what the Higgs boson particle and stuff was to other people that watched the show.
I think they don't like it because it shows nerds getting girls.
You know, in the early episodes, they really played up the part of nerds being socially awkward, you know, overly intelligent, but emotionally stunted individuals.
Yeah.
But as the show progressed, I think they actually peeled back the veil a little bit and showed that nerds come in every shape and size. I mean, like, Will Wheaton was on there. He's a big nerd.
Yeah.
They had the whole Joe Manganiello D&D episode,
Yeah.
which is a very real thing.
Yes, I do.
Joe
know that.
Manganiello is a huge D&D player, and he does host celebrity games.
Yeah, I watched them on a podcast where they played Magic the Gathering. It
Yeah.
was the D&D set from last year. He was like, "Hey guys, I'm here. I'm gonna play with dragons."
Yeah. So, you know, I think in the early parts of it, they really did typecast nerds. But over the course of the show, they showed that nerds really can come in a lot of different shapes and sizes and backgrounds. And, you know, we're not all, you know, pocket protector, taped up glass wearing people that are afraid of the sunlight. Some of us are very social people, or in Joe Manganiello's case, big buff dude.
Yeah.
You know, so we're not just all vampires that hide in the basements.
I wish I was.
You know, there are certain advantages. But on that same note, I don't think a lot of people understand, you know, just how the different nerds of the world out there are. Like Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel.
Everybody knows Vin Diesel from the Fast and the Furious movies. This big, bald, muscled up, you know, gearhead, petrol head. But in reality, he is a giant nerd. He's got a game studio. Ark and Ark 2, those are his games. In Ark 2, the character looks like Vin Diesel.
Yeah, and he's a big D&D nerd. Like,
He is-
all of his movies that aren't about cars are about D&D characters.
Riddick.
Yeah.
Riddick is based on a D&D character. Yeah, I mean, you can sit there and think of Leonard and Sheldon from Big Bang Theory as these are our nerds, but the reality of it is that's just one small subset of what nerd encompasses, because you've got people like Joe Manganiello, Vin Diesel, The Rock. Yeah.
Cassius Marsh is a big nerd that's in the NFL who owns his own card shop, premium card shop, where he sells Pokemon cards, Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Flesh and Blood. If it is a collectible card or a nerd product, like helmets, maybe even, I've seen like some of it, like one of them had like a helmet of some kind, sword of some kind in there, but someone could have brought it.
But he has, yeah.
Premium nerd stuff.
And I don't think anybody's going to go up and make fun of him and call him a nerd.
No.
Yeah.
No.
He's an offensive lineman or something like that, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's a big dude.
Samuel L. Jackson, I think I'm not sure if it was edited, had a t-shirt that said, "I love hentai." Because in a podcast, not a podcast, a video, he did say, "Yeah, I watch anime and hentai too."
Yeah.
And hentai wasn't even brought up. He said that line himself.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody's going to go up to Samuel L. Jackson and make fun of him. I mean, he's going to call him a lot of cuss words and then probably beat him down.
Yeah, like most people are like, he's in Star Wars because they paid him. Nah, he was probably in it because he thought that'd be fun and it was really cool.
But his purple lightsaber was one of his demands.
Yeah.
He wanted a purple lightsaber, and George Lucas went, Samuel wants it, Samuel gets it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we have a purple lightsaber.
Yeah, changed the whole lore just because he wanted a purple lightsaber.
Well,
No, there was lightsaber color lore that kind of like each color sort of represented a thing.
Depends on which background you goes from, because there's also the history of part of your Jedi training was to go and build your own lightsaber. which is kind of why, Luke was gifted Anakin's lightsaber. Well, that's not really how it worked, but by that time there was a lot of, oppression around the Jedis, and the Empire was trying to wipe them out. So that may not have been an option. But in the old days, Jedis had to build their own lightsabers, and they had to go and find the kyber crystals that went into it. And depending on the crystals you used, determined the color you got.
Yeah.
And some of them used one crystal, some of them used two crystals, and you could blend crystals to get different colors.
Yeah, and then the red is, they synthetically did that to get the red.
There's a lot of color themes within the Star Wars visuals from the movies, but the lore itself never excluded purple.
Yeah.
It just wasn't a common color.
I think he said, "Hey, I want purple." Okay. And then they're like,
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah, and then it goes, all right, well, here's a lore reason for it, just because we need it.
Yeah, they had to build some background in to make it canon, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was how that came about. Samuel L. Jackson said, if you want me in this movie, I'm going to have a purple lightsaber. Okay. They gave him a purple lightsaber. And that's how we got Mace Windu. Well, that's enough about movies. Let's talk about our favorite nerd topic. And I'm not talking get rich quick schemes with dolphin milk. I'm talking our favorite topic. What do you and I talk about almost every day?
Food.
We do talk a lot about food, but I'm talking nerd things.
Oh, Magic the Gathering.
There we go. Magic the Gathering. So, for me, and again, this is just kind of some chronological history for the listeners, being that this is our first episode. For me, I started playing Magic in 97, 98, right before you were born. And the game itself didn't really launch until like 94, 95. So I got into it just a couple of years after it went public.
I think you started playing before they came up with the idea of equipment.
Oh, yeah. Equipments were not a thing for a while.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I predate all of that stuff. I started playing when they still had the mechanic of interrupts.
In flanking.
Yeah, I was around for flanking when flanking was
Banding.
introduced, and banding, yeah, all that stuff. So I'm old school. Like my first packs that I bought were from like 4th edition. So that kind of tells you how old I am, how long I've been playing the game at least. And then I didn't collect a lot in the early days. I'd buy stuff here and there because there wasn't, it predates Amazon. So you couldn't just go online and order whatever you wanted on Amazon.
Couldn't go on eBay. And
eBay really wasn't big for a lot of this stuff back then. You had to go and find cards at card shops or certain bookstores. And we didn't have that around here back then. It's only become popular retail-wise in the last 15 years.
Yeah, we didn't get a card shop until 5 years ago?
Yeah, somewhere up and through there, 5-6 years ago,
the closest
maybe.
one to that was Dallas.
Yeah, Waco. There were some in Waco and Dallas. But we had some bookstores in the old mall from time to time. And every once in a while, we could find some Magic packs in there. But they weren't readily available like they are now. So my collection didn't really grow until 20 years ago, So when I first started out, it was a few packs here and there. I only had a handful of decks. And then when you guys were born and started getting older was really when Magic cards got to be more accessible. Because your first group of cards came as a Christmas gift from my friend John Mark.
Well, that was my second. My first group of cards was when you bought me and Dylan the Knights versus Dragons dual deck 60 card.
Yeah, I bought y'all that dual deck as an introduction so you could have your own deck and start learning the rules. But your first big stuff
Yeah.
was that Christmas gift from John Mark. And that was, what, 1,000 card box or something of random stuff?
2,000 card box of random
2,000.
stuff.
Yeah.
He gave us 2 of his own stuff. He would later learn to regret giving me those cards.
Well, yeah, because it ended up having some pretty good cards in there.
Good cards, and I'm now decent. No, I'm pretty good at the game, I'd say. I understand it.
I would say you're better than pretty good. I mean, you are among our group one of the top deck builders.
Yeah, I probably, if I'm at the table, is a clear threat on no matter what I'm doing.
Well, to that regard, the group of friends that we play with, we're all threats in our own right.
Yeah. Yeah, each is a threat for a different reason. One person's a threat because they'll infinitely combo out turn 5 or 6. You will immediately just try and start taking resources. Not for yourself, just putting them away, blowing them up, goodbye to your resources.
Yeah.
And then me, it's, hey, I'm going to take your life total to 0 as fast as I can.
You're all about killing us. Our buddy Mike is all about technical wins. Winning by comboing until we're dead, or winning by comboing until we meet some other criteria to lose the game, like we have no cards left in our library and can't draw, that type of thing.
Yeah.
I'm all about not really winning as much as I am terrorizing everybody else.
Yeah, you are.
I play chaos. You play combat. Mike plays technical.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you had to look back at your collection now, how many cards do you think you own?
I think for once I am probably really close to, like, I'm gonna say more than 10,000 cards. I'm gonna say close to maybe 15.
So you've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15,000.
Yeah.
Okay. So my collection is roughly 33,000 Magic cards.
Yeah, you got like 3,600 sitting right there.
Oh, yeah. Well, in that box. Yeah.
In just that box alone.
Yeah. So that brings up an interesting point then. So if you've got 15,000 cards, how many decks do you actually have?
Commander-wise, probably,
well, just in general,
probably 30 of those, which is the 100-card format, and then I'm gonna go with probably 8 of the 60-card formats.
See, and I think I'm slightly above you there. I've got probably 36 Commander decks and probably 20 to 25 60-card decks.
I think there's more than that in there.
Well, we've taken some of those apart, like gluten-free Ebola's gone.
Yeah, okay. Most of those probably aren't legal anymore of 60s. For 60.
Well, no.
Oh, yeah, because you can go down to 40.
Yeah, that's just it. Legal is different terms.
They're not was synergized as well anymore.
No, we've taken key cards out of some of them to build our commanders. And I think it's important to explain to our listeners that when we play Magic the Gathering and we build decks, we don't play tournaments.
No.
We are not competitive players in that we participate in official tournaments. We don't try and go onto the world rankings or anything like that. So our decks are a little bit more relaxed in how we build. Like we don't go by the ban list.
Yeah, we don't really go to LGS's local game stores and go play with random people or anything. No, we play with the people we know, and we play with what we got, and we play with the way we want to play, basically.
Well, but I mean, our ideas are pretty much if we own it, we can play it.
Yeah.
Because we're not playing in official tournaments. Like, I've got Emrakul, Eon's Torn.
Yeah.
He's a banned card. You can't use him in tournaments. I've got him. He's an expensive card. He's a really good card, damn right I'm gonna play him.
Yeah, if you spent the money, you can use it.
Yeah.
Now, if it's like you spent $3,000 on a card and you want to play it, I'm gonna call you stupid.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go out and buy a Black Lotus and then put it on the board for
Yeah.
everybody to see. I'm gonna frame that sucker and insure the crap out of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we talk about our playing and our play styles, it's not necessarily based off of the official tournament rule.
Yeah.
You know, we play more casual.
Yeah, we're not playing on like a scale to 1 to 10, like how strong the deck is. We're somewhere between 5s and 7s. Probably closer to 5s and 7s, not really much of an in between.
Well, because we don't go out and spend uber dollars to build competitive decks for tournament play.
Yeah, we won't go out and buy a land over $10. We don't even go out to buy a land.
$10 land.
Yeah,
Ew.
yeah, we won't even buy like super expensive lands because they're good. We just basic lands will do.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got some lands that are actually valuable.
Yeah.
And I won't touch them. So yeah, so that's an important thing to understand, that when we get to talking about our Magic cards and our Magic decks, that what some of the cards that we talk about using may not be tournament legal. We don't want to hear any gruff about that, because we're not trying to play these cards in tournaments, and we're not suggesting you try it either.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that you use to track your decks or your collection?
Not particularly, but if I do use Moxfield.
See, and I'm the same way. I've got a Moxfield profile, and I've got a lot of my decks up on Moxfield.
I got like 2.
I've got a lot of old ones. I need to go and put some of my new decks in there. So I'll probably be doing that soon. And just by the way, for you guys listening, if y'all are ever curious about the decks we talk about, or any of the websites that we refer to, like Moxfield, if you go to our website, lordbradbrad.com, we have a page called Products. If you go to that page, down at the very bottom, there's a section for websites that it'll actually list out all the websites that we talk about for using, Magic the Gathering, tracking, pricing, collection organizing, all of that stuff. And we'll even have links out there to some of the decks that we talk about. I've got my deckbox.org collection list out there. So if you go to our website and click on Riorik's Deckbox collection, it'll show you the 33,000 cards that are in my collection.
Yeah, that's what time will let you do. I do not have time. I don't think I've ever had time.
It is a luxury that I have had to enjoy, and I fully intend to reap the benefits of it.
Yeah, I'll get there.
Yeah, in time you'll get there.
I'll get there.
I didn't start off that way. When I was your age, I didn't have time to do this crap.
Yeah.
It's only now that I'm old, I can do it.
Yeah.
So you keep dropping your phone.
I know.
Quit. On the theme of Magic, what is probably the favorite deck you have?
Favorite deck?
Favorite deck.
That's Kalia the Vast, where it's just a bunch of angels, some demons, and then like the good dragons. But I have a dragon deck that stays over there. But Kalia.
Does Kalia's deck have a name, or do you just call it Kalia?
It's oh look, she's dead, basically, because the moment she comes out, she's automatically dead or countered.
Everybody hates Kalia.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the reason I ask that is because most of our decks have names.
Yeah, I got a deck's name. Its name is Blitzkrieg, where you just blitz everything.
You're using the blitz mechanic to constantly play stuff. Yeah,
there's that. Not a good one, but it's the name, and it's there to stay.
Well, yeah, there's some things that need better names. I mean, I've got some decks that have bad names on them. I need to work on that. But for me, my favorite deck Which one do you think it is?
Your favorite?
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm gonna go with the one that has the illegal card in it, and it's gonna be Ninjarazzi.
Ninjarazzi.
Yeah, Ninja Eldrazzis. And notice these decks are kind of new, because if you can make your favorite stuff better, you kind of wanna.
For a long time, I had an Eldrazi 60 card deck that was all about getting my Eldrazzis out that way. And then when we started playing Commander, we converted Eldrazzis into Eggdrazi, where we used the Nest Tender to create eggs that got my Eldrazzis out for free. Now that we've got Ninjitsu, we've got Nindrazi, so that I can put my 15/15 on the board for 4 mana and smack you without being blocked.
Yeah.
That's pretty brutal in my mind.
Yeah.
So.
And I got Power Rangers, where it's the new Shurikai deck, where it's the vehicle can be your commander. Yeah. And I got proxies of cards that... I own the card and I own the deck, but it's just a makeover where it's Tommy is the driver and the Megazord.
Well, but back up. But the concept of the deck is you've got this vehicle as your commander, and you play a bunch of pilots that pilot other vehicles that come together to create a big vehicle.
Yeah, the whole point of the deck is to find the Mech Titan core to immediately create the Megazord, Voltron, whatever. The whole point is
But that's cards. Not what it's called.
Yeah.
But the way it all comes together is very similar to Power Rangers bringing out the Megazord.
Yeah, I gotta bring out my Megazord.
Yeah.
Gotta Voltron it. But Voltron means something different in Magic, so I don't call it Voltron. So, it's gotta get the Megazord.
So just for those who may not be aware, what does Voltron in Magic mean?
Oh, that basically means you get one creature and you make it as big as you can. It's one creature that you're trying to get super big and just kill him in 1 shot, 2 shots. You're just trying to use that one creature as
like
the
your
base.
Hydra.
Yeah, like my Hydra decks, where it's just a bunch of +1/+1s on... Well, it's one big creature coming at you with trample, or a multitude of big ones, but usually you get like 1 or 2 out with Hydras.
That really kind of says a lot, that you've got your Megazord deck, which is all about getting this big robot, and you've got your Hydra deck, which is all about getting these big guys out, that stuff. So you definitely play a more physical, aggressive, combat-oriented style.
I am a heavy creature player.
Yeah. Whereas I am not.
Yeah, you are sorcery, basically. You're big scary creatures, but in order to do it, I'm gonna blow up your stuff.
I only have one big scary creature deck, and that's my Eldrazi deck. Blightsteel is scary for a different reason, but he's the only big scary guy in Ninfect.
Yeah.
So in addition to Nindrazi, where I ninjutsu in my Eldrazzis that are all big creatures, I have a separate deck that's called Ninfect, where I ninjutsu in Blightsteel Colossus, who is an 11/11 creature with Infect, so if he hits somebody one time, they automatically die because they have 10 or more Infect poison counters on. He's the only big guy I've got in that deck because he's the only big guy I need.
That's true.
But most of my decks that I tend to play frequently are all about board control. I'm going to exile your permanents. I'm going to send things back to your hand. I'm going to blow stuff up. I'm going to destroy everything. I'm going to counter stuff. I mean, even my sliver deck is about board control.
Yeah.
Because I've got my constricting sliver, so I'm sitting there just taking stuff away. Nobody can hit me. Nobody can stop me. If I control the board, I can win with a 1/1. I don't need big punchy things.
Big punchy things are fun.
Big punchy things are fun. That's why I like Emrakul. But, you know why I like Emrakul and the other Eldrazzis? Not because they're big punchy things, but because they have Annihilator. And what does Annihilator do? It makes other people get rid of things. Board control.
But that's not fun.
It is for me.
That's true.
I enjoy watching you squirm as I swing and say, you've got a total of Annihilator 23 coming at you. Sacrifice 23 permanents. Okay, now we'll go to combat. Oh, look, you don't have a board state. I'm going to hit you for 800 points of damage.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, enough about Magic. We can talk more Magic. So, because one of the other things that we want to do with this podcast, just to kind of give you guys a heads up, is there's a new set dropping later in June, this month.
It's in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Well, 2 weeks from today, not necessarily from when the podcast airs. So, it drops mid-June, and it's D&D themed set for Magic the Gathering. And one of the things we've already pre-ordered us each our own boxes. We want to do an unboxing episode where we open up our packs, or crack packs as we call it, and look to see what cool cards we get out of them. And one of the things that we do when we tend to crack packs like that is we set aside our rares and our mythics, and we pick what our next commander deck is going to be led by.
Yeah.
So we have to stick to that, and we have to do an episode around that too.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I know. More deck building. Poor, pitiful you.
Yeah, the problem is I don't know if I kind of don't know how I'm going to build the deck with this.
Let's get the cards and find out.
Oh, I know. It's just, it's going to take a lot of time.
Well, nobody said deck building happened overnight.
I know. I gotta make space. I gotta get cards. I need a new box.
I know. Yeah, I'm gonna have to revamp some of my stuff too. I mean, how long have I been working on my Lord Xander deck? About a month. Yeah, and I still got a few more cards to go.
Yeah.
So by the time that this new deck drops, Lord Xander will be just about ready, and then I'll be free to build another one. But I think on our next regular episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about maybe some of our animes, get into some details of some of our animes.
Yeah.
And talk about our D&D background, because we've only touched on D&D a little bit today, but we actually like D&D a fair amount too.
Yes. Like, I love my anime, I love my D&D. I did a One Piece campaign. It was short. Not a lot of people were happy because party death. But yeah.
But we do a lot of one-shots because we have such a large group of friends, but such varied schedules that it's hard to have a long-term campaign where everybody can participate, because it's been very rare here lately for us to have the same group of people show up every time.
Yeah.
So we end up doing a one-shot for whoever shows up.
Yeah. We'll talk about how the anime influences that in the fun stories, what happened in those campaigns.
Because our D&D campaigns have been influenced by a lot of our nerd adventures, but the D&D campaigns have also influenced other things.
Yes.
And we can talk about that then too. But I think that pretty much wraps it up for this introductory episode. We'll talk more specifics on things later. We just kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit of a heads up about who we are and what some of our thoughts are on these subjects today. And then we'll dive into details later, right?
Yeah, we'll go into different TV shows, movies, specific ones we'll talk about, or a specific set of movies. Like, we'll have a thing about just DC movies, Marvel movies, sci-fi movies, fantasy movies.
Yeah. So today's just kind of a generic introductory episode, and I know it may not have been what some of you came looking for, but we felt it was important to introduce ourselves as the nerds that we are.
Yeah.
So that when we start talking about this stuff later, you kind of understand where we're coming from.
Yeah. Give you the variety pack first, and then specialize it later.
Yeah. All right. Well, awesome. Well, thank y'all for joining us, right?
Yeah, thank y'all for joining us.
And until next time, this is Riorik.
And Lord Brad Brad.
See you later. Thank you for listening to this episode of Nerd Shit. Be sure to follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Lord Brad Brad to see when new episodes drop. Or you can find our channel on YouTube. Just search Lord Brad Brad and look for our logo.
You can listen to all of your favorite episodes of Nerd Shit directly from our website, www.lordbradbrad.com, where you can also learn a little bit more about us and the products we use and reference on the show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to donate to the show, we gladly accept donations at ko-fi.com/LordBradBrad. That's coffee, spelled ko-fi.com/LordBradBrad. Or you can just click the link at the bottom of our website. If you have any comments on anything discussed in this episode or would like to suggest a topic you would like to hear us talk about in a future episode, hit us up on our Facebook page. Again, that's facebook.com/LordBradBrad. Until next time, this is Riorik signing off and telling you to keep doing that nerd shit because you know we will.